I'm pleased to be joined by Bellator MMA middleweight John Salter, who is getting ready to fight at Bellator 233 against Costello van Steenis. John, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's nice to talk to you again. I feel like it's been way too long since we've seen you compete inside the cage. It's coming up on a year now. So why the layoff and how fresh are you feeling?
Good. The layoff wasn't necessarily my choosing. I was trying to get a fight set up before I went to Thailand to teach jiu-jitsu over there. It didn't work out to get it set up, and it just seemed like it dragged out and dragged out till I finally got something lined up. So glad to be getting back in there. It's been way too long.
What has life been like for you? I know you stay pretty active with training and everything. Has it just been a regular, just a longer camp? Because you're always in camp year round, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and obviously like anybody else, we got other guys that are fighting and training all the time. So just helping those guys get ready. And, you know, as much as I would prefer to stay busier, it's not the worst thing because it really helps me kind of focus on the gym and get things going there.
I recently spoke with one of your proteges here, Joe Selecki, who looked amazing at Contender Series with a fantastic performance. Talk a little bit about the evolution of him as a fighter and what you expect him to do now that he is in the UFC.
Yeah, he came and started training with us about a year ago, and he could wrestle a little bit. His jiu-jitsu is unbelievable. He's world-class grappler, and his striking was pretty good. And I think just really throwing himself full-time into training, he's still with the same boxing coach he had before, but he's really able to focus on it, put time with it. His stand-up has just gone through the roof, and his wrestling, I got him wrestling with college wrestlers that he's taken down now. So, Joe's just so well rounded. Just turned 26 years old. We're going to see huge things for him in the future.
Do you have any other any guys or girls in your gym that could potentially be household names down the line that maybe some of us don't know about yet?
I think another guy that we've got, he's having his second pro fight in 2 weeks. His name's Corey Crumpler, and he had his first pro fight years ago. He's 30. He is a guy that he fought and just wanted to train for a long time and not fight. And now he wants to fight again. And, there's nobody, we go with world-class guys all the time. There's nobody that he isn't on their level. He's just an absolute animal that just hasn't wanted to compete for a long time. So I'm really excited for him to get back going. He's going to get this fight behind him and try to get him about 4-5-0 and then get him somewhere.
Very cool. Now, outside of MMA, what other hobbies do you have? I know for me personally, I'm a huge football fan, so this time of year is always really exciting for me. Do you get into football or any other sports?
Yeah, I'm from Alabama, so I'm a big Alabama fan. My wife graduated from Alabama. I went to college in Missouri because they didn't have wrestling at Alabama, but we're big Alabama fans, and I love to fish. So we live right here on the coast. So we're either out on the boat with the dogs anytime I'm not training, or I'm out fishing. So I stay pretty busy doing something like that.
Do you ever go to any of the Alabama football games, or do you just like to stay at home and watch them from there?
We used to go to a lot of them when I lived closer, but now I live so far away. We try to go to one a year. It's just a long drive to get down to Tuscaloosa now.
Yeah, no, I'm from Maine originally, but I'm a huge Patriots fan, and it's a 4 or 5 hour drive from where we're at. But that's the same thing for me. I try to make it down to at least one game a year, which is enough.
Yeah, this is a good time to be a Patriots fan.
Man, you're telling me. We'll see how long Brady sticks around, but it's been pretty special to say the least. Now, let's talk a little bit about you right now. You got another tough challenge coming up next. Your last fight against Chidi was probably the most important win of your career. Big name fighter, and you really look fantastic in there. What kind of problems is your upcoming opponent Costello planning to implement for you? What do you think he does best as a fighter?
Coming off the Chidi fight, I think Chidi was a better striker than Costello. Costello is so well-rounded. Chidi was a guy that I knew I eventually just had to weather the storm and put him on his back. I think Costello's a guy that does a really good job popping up if you put him on his back. He actually wrestles too, so I expect at some point he'll probably try to take me down. And he defends takedowns pretty well. But, all that, obviously he's, comes from that Dutch kickboxing style. So he's really good on the feet too. I think he's very well rounded. I think everywhere that you can put him, he's pretty high level.
Now, your last loss against Rafael Lovato Jr., that he is now the current Bellator middleweight champion of the world after beating Mousasi most recently. Were you impressed by that fight? Did you like what you saw out of him? And do you think that rematch is something that you're getting close to if you can put together a couple more wins?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, after fighting Lovato, I knew how good he was, and there's nowhere that he's not tough. His stand-up, I think everybody forgets that Lovato's been boxing since he was a little kid, and he's 6'4". So how do you reach him? And then obviously he's one of the best in the world on the ground. But the one thing I thought going into the fight with Mousasi is will he be able to take him down? But if he can get a takedown, he can probably finish it. And then I was sitting at dinner with some friends, and I was watching it on my phone. So I looked at my wife, I was like, Lovato just took him down in the first round. And then just seemed like he kept doing it, and it was such a great fight to watch, and to watch a guy that I have so much respect for be able to go out there and get that world championship. It was great. But with that said, I'm on the road back to him right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mousasi's been around for a very long time, and that could be a potential matchup for you if you get past your next opponent to get that title shot that I know you eventually want. What would a fight with Mousasi look like stylistically? Do you like your chances in that one?
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, Mousasi's been around forever. There's no real big surprises on him. He's a world-class striker. He's got a really good butterfly guard, but his big hole in his game has always been his wrestling. So I think that's somewhere that I can exploit.
Now, I've really liked the Grand Prix tournaments that Bellator has been doing. They now are implementing the 145-pound Grand Prix. Has there been any rumblings about a Bellator middleweight Grand Prix? I felt like I heard something a while back, but I haven't seen anything substantial as of late.
I haven't heard anything about it, but I think, for so long, there was realistically 4 of us that were the top, in the middleweight division, kind of, I want to say above everything else, but I think now we've got enough guys there, enough talent at the 185 division that a Grand Prix would be pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it really there's a lot of people, a lot of fighters at middleweight, right around that weight range that are very elite. Do you feel like outside of the top 4 in the Bellator roster that there are any guys that could potentially give you any issues, or do you just feel like it's really you, Mousasi, Lovato, and a couple other guys sprinkled in there?
I think the middleweight division's thickened up quite a bit in Bellator. I don't think that it's at one time, like I said, I didn't really think that the lower down the roster was that tough, but I think you've got about 10 really tough middleweights in there now, and some young guys coming up that it's hard to tell. They've looked fantastic. It's just hard to tell if they've really been tested, but I think the middleweight division's really coming together in Bellator.
Yeah, and I got to ask you, the UFC middleweight title is on the line a couple weeks from now out in Australia. Robert Whittaker is taking on Israel Adesanya. I just want to get your pick on that one. Who do you think wins and why?
For a while I thought Israel looked unbeatable, and then with his last fight with Gastelum, I think after watching that, I think that gosh, am I drawing a blank now? I think the title's going to stay with Whittaker. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's something else. He's very well rounded. Obviously you're doing great things in Bellator. Do you anticipate staying with the Bellator promotion throughout your career, or do you eventually would you like to test yourself in the UFC if that opportunity came about?
Well, this is my last fight on my contract with Bellator. So after this, we'll go back to the drawing board and we'll see where we're going here. I don't really have a plan one way or the other. Whatever seems best for my career is where I'm hoping to go.
Do you feel like you stack up pretty well with the guys in the top 5, top 10 in the UFC?
I think so. I trained with several guys that are in the UFC. I feel like I'm right there with some of the top guys in the division. So I think that would be a good move for me if I do that. I think it'd be great to stay in Bellator. Just depends on what makes the most sense.
Gotcha. Well, this next fight, again, very exciting. Your opponent is 12-1, doesn't have quite as much experience as you do, but again, very well-rounded. Stylistically, do you feel like your wrestling is just going to be a little bit better than his? You did say he has a background in that, but do you feel like that's going to be what separates you from him and getting yourself a W here?
I think so. I think that's what's going to help me, help us determine where the fight goes. Is it on the feet or is it on the ground? Um, and I think he's looked really good in all his fights. I do think he lost that fight against Chris Honeycutt. Um, so I think that's a win that really shouldn't be there. But he looked good in that fight. He fought through a lot of adversity and really showed a lot of heart in his ability to grapple really well. So I think this is a guy that's not going to make it easy on me, but I think I can eventually kind of impose my will on him.
So give me an official prediction. Where do you see this fight ending? Do you think it's going to be a kind of a dog fight where it gets to a decision, or do you think you're going to finish him?
Gosh, obviously I want to get the finish every time I step in the cage, but this is a guy that does tend to turn things into a dog fight. He kind of makes it ugly, and that's I think his bread and butter. And then on the feet, he's sharp and he's athletic. He's long. So I think this is one where I've got to go in with the plan that this might be ugly for a little bit of the fight before I can really take over. But I'm ready for that. If I see an opportunity, I'm planning on finishing it. But I got to go in there with the idea of this guy's gonna make me fight for 15 minutes.
Obviously, like you said, you want to go in there and get the win as quickly as possible. But sometimes do you feel like when you're testing yourself against another high-level mixed martial artist that it's good to go in there and log minutes to maybe win a decision just so you can be in there and experience what it's like to actually, fight, 15 minutes or 25 if it's for a title, whatever it may be? Is that something that you feel like does benefit you?
Probably down the road, it does, but it's a really dangerous thing to do. Yeah. Especially against high-level guys, like Costello, because you give him a chance, he's going to finish the fight. And, the fight with Honeycutt, I felt like Honeycutt pretty much controlled that fight the entire time. And then the third round, Honeycutt drops his hands for a half second and gets head kicked and dropped, So this is a guy that you can't take a break on. So if I see a chance to get him out of there, I'm going to do it as quickly as possible.
Now, let's just assume that you do get this win like a lot of people are expecting you to do. What is next for you? Do you want to fight again? I know this calendar year is coming to a close. Do you think we're going to see you in early 2020? Or what would your plans be if Bellator does re-sign you?
I'd like to, keep fight as soon as possible. I want to stay busy. I've really kind of averaged about 2 fights a year over the past few years, and I'd like to stay busier than that. It's not necessarily always me wanting to wait and not fight. I like to stay busy, and I train all the time. I'm always in shape, so I can jump into a training camp anytime. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
Well, it's always a pleasure watching you compete. You were one of my father's favorite fighters to watch. He loved your wrestling style, so it's really exciting for me to have you on the show again. Pleasure to talk to you. Before I let you go, anyone you want to thank or any social media that you like to plug? The floor is yours.
Yeah, all my sponsors, Clean Eats here in Wilmington, Slicers Hoagies down in Florida. If you're down there, check them out. And Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu's my gym where I train. So if you're in Wilmington, you want to check out Jiu-Jitsu, do that. And you can find me at John Salter MMA on Instagram. And apparently my dog's back, so he wants to get plugged in.
He is cute. What is his name again?
That's Bracken.
How many do you have?
I've got 3. I've got 2 red labs and a yellow lab.
Oh yeah. Dogs are the best. They really are.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Well, John, again, thank you for the time, my man. Stay healthy, get to that fight, get the win, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.